Summary of St. Joan by George Bernard Shaw. The story of St. Joan starts in 1429 at the castle of Vaucouleurs. Captain Robert de Baudricourt is sitting at a table and yelling at his servant for not having any eggs. The servant is sure that the hens won't lay eggs until de Baudricourt agrees to see the maid. The maid called on de Baudricourt 2 days ago and is still outside, praying and talking with troops while she waits to be seen. Without wanting to, de Baudricourt sends for her. It's Joan of Arc, a simple country girl of 17 or 18 years old who is dressed like a man and has a strong sense of self-confidence. De Baudricourt needs to give her a horse, weapons, and troops, and then send her to the Dauphin. She says this because she is on a mission to raise the siege of Orleans based on what the voices of saints telling her is God's word. De Baudricourt doesn't like being told what to do by a girl, but Joan won't say no. She tells him that Bertrand de Poulengy and Monsieur John of Metz, 2 soldiers, have agreed to help her on her journey and go with her. Although he doesn't want to, de Baudricourt gives in to Joan's requests. Joan and her men are going to meet the Dauphin in Chinon. The servant runs in to tell de Baudricourt that the hens have started laying eggs again after they leave. This, to de Baudricourt, is proof that Joan really did come from God. Later, Joan gets to the Dauphin's castle in Chinon, Touraine, where he lives. In her message, she says that God sent her to get the English out of France and make him king. The Dauphin is wary because he doesn't like war and knows that the English are better at fighting than the French. However, things are so bad that France has nothing to lose, and Joan finally persuades him to let her lead his army. The 29th of April, 1429, Joan and her men get to France. On the Loire River, she meets Dunois, who is known as the Bastard of Orleans. Dunois thinks Joan is too sure of herself and stupid because she can't wait to start fighting. The English are across the river, according to Dunois, but he doesn't want to fight until the wind changes directions. This is because they have to go up the river and attack the English from behind. Every day, Dunois has prayed for a west wind, but it didn't help. Dunois and Joan both pray. Soon after, Dunois' page tells him with shock that the wind has changed. And Dunois thinks this proves Joan is sent from God. So they get ready to fight the English. In a tent at an English camp later, the chaplain, John d'Austigumber, and the Earl of Warwick talk about Joan. They think she is a witch because the French's sudden string of military wins doesn't make sense any other way. The Bishop of Beauvais, Peter Cauchon, walks in. Cauchon and Warwick talk about the issues Joan brings up for their own organizations. Cauchon thinks Joan has been heretical, and as a churchman, he feels he has to make sure she changes her mind and avoids going to hell. At the same time, he knows that Joan and her ideas are bad for the church. Joan doesn't think the church is in the middle of her relationship with God. She thinks she can talk to God and understand God's word without help from the church. This makes the church less powerful over its people. More than Joan's problems with the church, Warwick is more worried about Joan's political ideas and how they might affect the feudal system and society as it is now. Joan believes that the common people should only answer to the king, which would mean that noblemen like Warwick would lose their power. Cauchon and Warwick have different concerns. Cauchon is interested in the spiritual, while Warwick is interested in the material. However, both men agree that Joan is a threat to the power of their own institutions. They all agree that Joan needs to be stopped. Scene V takes place in Rheims' church. After many war wins, Joan finally made Dauphin king. He is now King Charles VII. When Dunois walks into the church, he sees Joan praying. Joan plans to go back to the country because she kept her word to God, but before she leaves, she asks Dunois if they can keep fighting and get the English out of Paris. Dunois doesn't think the French will be able to keep winning, and the Archbishop says Joan is stubborn, full of herself, and proud, which is a sin. Charles VII agrees with Joan that she is going too far. It turns out that Joan has a lot of haters because of what she does and how sure of herself she is. A lot of people in power, the crown, the military, and the church, tell Joan that she is on her own if her enemies take her. If something horrible happens to her, no one will save her. The English caught Joan on May 30, 1431, and she is now being tried for treason. Cauchon really wants Joan to have a fair hearing. Even though he gives her many chances to change her mind and save her soul and body, she refuses to deny the truth of what she says and put the church's authority above God's straight word. Joan finds out that she will be burned at the stake right away because she won't change her mind. She quickly signs a paper that contradicts what she had said before because she thinks that it will let her go free. When Cauchon tells her she will spend the rest of her life in jail, she tears up the confession and accepts her fate. The executioner tells her that her heart couldn't be killed, so she is burned right away. The chaplain runs into the courtroom in a crazy state of mind. Seeing Joan being cruelly and horribly burned for witchcraft has changed him deeply, and he feels ashamed and guilty about how excited he was to see her executed. He tells Warwick and Cauchon that a soldier gave Joan a homemade cross as she was dying and said that he felt bad that he couldn't stop her from burning. Ladvenu, a Dominican monk who feels sorry for Joan, says that he also gave her a cross. But when the flames got so high that they could cover both Ladvenu and Joan, she told him to get down and save himself. Ladvenu thinks that the fact that Joan was selfless in her last hours proves that she was sent by God and not the devil, and that her death was not the end for her but the start of her recovery. 25 years after Joan's death, Ladvenu goes to see King Charles VII to tell him that the charges against her have been dropped. The church has cleared her name while smearing the names of those who accused her. This makes Charles VII happy because it means he wasn't crowned by a witch or a sinner. This means his rank is real. Then Joan shows up in a dream to Charles VII. He tells her good news. One by one, the people who judged or left Joan show up. Finally, a man dressed in clothes from the 1920s walks into the room and tells everyone that Joan has been made a saint 500 years after she was put to death. Everyone tells her they're sorry they had doubts and gives her praise. But when Joan asks if she should come back to life and join them, they say no, make reasons, and leave. Joan yells out in agony, "God, who made this beautiful earth, when will it be ready for your saints to come? How long, Lord? How long?"
About the author. George Bernard Shaw was born in Dublin in 1856. Shaw went to 4 schools as a child and was unhappy at all of them. He formed a strong dislike for formal schooling. In 1873, his mother went to London with his 2 older sisters. In 1876, Shaw joined them there. While he was in London, Shaw did a few odd jobs. It wasn't until the 1880s that he started making enough money from writing to live on. Even though he is best known for his plays, his first books were stories. During this time, Shaw got involved in politics by going to meetings with the Social Democratic Federation. He joined the British socialist group Fabian Society in 1884. It was a new group at the time. Shaw's support for socialism is a major theme in a lot of his work. In the 1890s, he stopped working on politics and started writing plays. By the start of the 20th century, he was known as a major playwright. Widower's Houses, his first play for the stage, opened at the Royalty Theatre in 1892. There are 3 plays by Shaw that are called plays unpleasant. Widower's Houses is one of them. The plays unpleasant were unpleasant because they weren't fun to watch because they wanted to make people think about and see important social and economic problems and inequality. Shaw wrote a lot of plays. He released more than 60 of them, and many of them were sharply critical of society, like the plays Unpleasant. Major Barbara, 1905, Pygmalion, 1912, and St. Joan, 1923, are some of his best-known plays. Shaw won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1925, not long after St. Joan came out. He died in 1950, when he was 94 years old.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.